Um, yeah, so one of the things that we hear and see quite a lot is Google are constantly making updates. And a lot of the updates they're doing is increasing automation. So you'll probably hear quite often a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, what's going to happen to the paid media managers' jobs? What's going to happen to the industry? Because it's all going to be automated. The robots can do it all, right?" Firstly, I'm going to say I don't think any of us in the building are currently afraid that this is happening to us anytime soon. Um, but yeah, there have been a lot of increased automated recommendations, suggested ad copy. You know, if we're looking at if you look at LinkedIn any time at the moment, you're seeing a lot of people saying, "Oh, this blog post was written by robots. This blog post was written by AI," and you know, I think that's just not quite the case for a lot of people still. And yeah, we're going to kind of talk you through why. So yeah, if you could click to the next slide. Thanks. So yeah, I think there is a lot more to paid media management than Google and some of these scaremongers would like you to believe. Um, there are some really helpful suggestions in the way of automations. There are some really supporting tools that Google are giving us more and more frequently. But I think when it comes to some of the automations, we still have to be quite careful. Um, as an example, quite often when we have our regular scheduled conversations with Google, they might give us a list of suggestions of way that we can spend more with Google. Now, why might they be doing this? We're spending money with Google. So a lot of their recommendations can often need to be taken with a pinch of salt. Quite often, some of these recommendations are for the sake of growing an account, growing ad spend, and yeah, trying to get more for Google's money. However, this isn't always in the best interest of the customer, the client, whoever's owning the account, whoever's managing the account. So we do have to be quite careful there. Um, next slide, please. This is one example. So we had an account that we had tried quite a lot of the recommended suggested edits that Google provide us. And then an account still wasn't quite getting the results that they were wanting. We had quite a niche pocket of traffic we still weren't able to tap into. So we trialed some things and we got our heads together in our human brains. We analysed the business, we looked at the business needs, we looked at what they were offering, and we found some long tail keywords that Google hadn't suggested to us. We then were able to dig through the website ourselves, find the most relevant landing pages, write up the copy, but really based off the landing pages and what we were hoping for people to do. And what was amazing was this ad group that was quite specific, um, comparing it to the Google suggested activity that we'd also trialed, we had a click-through rate of 15% versus a click-through rate of 4% for the Google recommended activity. So that meant that 15% of the time when people were seeing this ad copy, they were clicking through and coming to the customer site, which is absolutely incredible, more than the 4% for the Google suggested. Looking even further onto the conversion rate, this was 13%. So it was so much more relevant. It was so much more engaging. And actually, compared to that 2% for the Google recommended activity, we really, really knew the business better. So what this says is actually, yeah, Google will often have recommendations. And it might be that particularly when you're stuck for something to try, look through these recommendations and they can be a really fantastic starting point. But actually, the reality is often you will know your business better than anyone else. It's for yourself and your team, whoever is working on that ad account, to have these conversations, to dig into the nitty gritty, to work out actually what is the need, what are the short term goals, what are the long term goals, and work together to work out a strategy. And yeah, it might be that some of these tools can be used, but using that human element, that human brain, and the people who run your business, they know what they need, they know what they want, and actually together you can actually find the answers a lot clearer. Next slide, please. So yeah, I think where it comes into it is actually, I'm not saying we don't want these robots, we don't want AI, we don't want automation, we don't want any of these tools, because of course we do. They're here for a reason, they are here to stay. And I think what we've got to do is embrace them and accept them, but know where they've got their place. And actually, part of the real wonder of automation, it frees up some of my time. There are jobs that I used to do when I first trained in PPC that actually now are automated, but that frees up my time to do more of the thinking and to do the strategy and to really do the thinking that can be applied to the account that the robots aren't doing it. So I'm not saying that we don't want any of the automation, but yeah, if you've got a real skilled workforce working on your paid media, they know how to use automation to their advantage, but also know when to kind of overrule and say this isn't the right time or place for this recommendation, or this recommendation has come just for the sake of trying to increase spend, rather than because it's what's best for my business and my business needs right now. So yeah, we'll keep automation, but just know who you want to have managing it. On to you, Rob.
Awesome, thanks, Claire. I know a few people have joined during the first myth, but yeah, it's all going to be recorded, so Cam will share it around with everyone later. Okay, so the second myth today is that once someone leaves my website, I can't target them. I'm sure the majority of people on this call have a company website, whether it's their own or it's the business's website. Everyone has a website. Everybody knows how important it is to have a website. But a common myth is that once a user has been to your website, once they've actually left, that's it. You can't re-engage with them. You can't message them. You can't encourage them back to the website. The chances are, once they've left your website, if they're in the market for a particular product, what they'll do is they'll naturally go visit a competitor's website, or they'll be targeted by one of your competitors. They'll be, marketed to, whether it's remarketing, it could be a message, it could be a push notification, it could be anything. Chances are your competitors are already doing what you could be doing if you're not already doing it, which, Cam, if we go to the next slide. And the solution to ensure that you don't lose these people once they've left your website is to have the appropriate tracking pixels and events set up on your website. And essentially what this does, as this handy little image shows you here, is that they come to your website, they leave, they may not find what they're looking for, or it may have just been the wrong time for them. They might not have been ready to purchase or contact you there and then. They leave. When they're on another platform, whether it be social media, Google, whatever it might be, your remarketing ad is then shown to that person to encourage them back to your website to pick up where they left off. Now, it's vitally important that you're always remarketing to people who have been to your website. Some of you may already have it set up. If you don't, I really encourage that you do. Always speak to us after the webinar or in the coming weeks. Yeah, finding new customers is hard enough as it is, but if you're not engaging with people who have already been to your website, then you're really missing out on a quick win. The tracking, the pixels and the events can be done in multiple ways, whether it's through the Meta pixel or the Facebook pixel. It can be through a Google Analytics tag or through a LinkedIn Insight tag. Essentially, they're all pieces of code or script that are added to your website. And once they are present and on your website, they can then start to begin retargeting people and building audiences for you. Cam, would you go over to the next slide, please? So the way around this, as I said, is to implement a pixel. For this particular example, I have shown you what a Meta or a Facebook pixel looks like. So the image on our right-hand side, you will see this is our company website, DNRG's website, and you'll see in the top corner there is a Meta pixel. So that is our Facebook pixel that is on the website that we use to create and build audiences so we can retarget to people once they've visited our website. It may be massively important to do it, and it is, but actually implementing any of the said pixels in the previous slide is not that difficult. For something that is as important as it is, we do it day in, day out across the agency. So yeah, it's a vitally important piece of the jigsaw to have set up, ideally from the start, because if you're building a new website or if you're running a new campaign, whatever it might be, from the get-go, you want to make sure you have all of your pixels, tracking and events set up. All right, Cam? So just delving a bit further into the Facebook pixel. So not only is it important, so it's there to track and build audiences, but you can also go a bit deeper, especially with the Facebook pixel, but also with the Google Analytics tag. What you can then do is start to actually analyze and review the actions that people are carrying out once they've been on your website, whether it's for the first time or when you've encouraged them back through remarketing. So there's basic high level sort of events such as page views or view content. So, you know, they've read something, maybe an about you page, or they've visited a contact us form. But it can also get to the really granular events such as add to carts. It can pull through purchase events. It can track what the value of that purchase is. So you can then calculate your ROI based on your campaign spend. And it just gives you a complete full view of all the activity that's being carried out across your various campaigns. Again, it just drives home the importance of ensuring you have these pixels on your website so you can build the remarketing audiences and fully analyze the campaigns that you're running. And back on you, Claire.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, very interesting stuff on retargeting and remarketing. Thanks for that. So another myth that we hear all the time when we're looking at campaign budgets, media spend, and how people want to split up their activity: why bother with Microsoft ads, Bing ads, whatever you want to call it, whatever sort of legacy name you want to give it? People are like, is there any point now? Isn't it dead? Who's using it? Always a really lovely discussion. So yeah, if you're leaving Microsoft ads out of your campaign budget and out of your strategy plans, have you considered why? Next slide, please. So yeah, I think if I'm asking you why, it kind of comes down to that whole that Levi's ad from quite a way back, when the world zigs, zag. Who are you targeting? What is their mentality? Are they fighting the status quo? Are they happy to accept what is? If you haven't read the book, The Choice Factory, it's a really, really fascinating one when it comes to digital marketing, different tools, different strategies, and different ideas. And one of the kind of principles that they go over is, yeah, who are you targeting and what is their mentality? If they're fighting the mainstream and if they're constantly looking at avoiding the mainstream, does your digital marketing strategy? Are you marketing on Google just because it's easy, because you think you should, because it's where your users are? Same thing goes with Microsoft ads. Actually, you know, for a lot of people, if that is the default on, say, phone, on a work device, on any tool, are you missing out on targeting them just because you think Microsoft and Bing ads and all, you know, all the Microsoft tools are null and void? Or is it potentially, dare I say it, out of laziness? Is it because you can't be bothered, or it's just not a priority? This could be a huge mistake. Now, what I'm not going to do is come on here and say to you, invest all your money in Microsoft ads. It's the future. It's where all your media budget should be spent, because that probably isn't the case. Majority of our clients are spending less on Microsoft than they are on Google, and that is an industry-wide trend. That is something we've known for quite a while. However, we do see a lot of opportunity. And particularly if you are looking for growth, something to consider. It's a channel. Are you using it to its maximum potential? Quite possibly not. You can go on to the next slide for me, please, Cam. Here's an example. One of our appliance retailers, when they were setting everything up for Black Friday, okay, here's an opportunity. Let's get set up to our kind of full potential on Microsoft ads. We know that Black Friday is one of those peak times that's super competitive on Google. Google, Facebook, you name it, media channels go really expensive for this period. Everyone knows if you try and speak to a media agency, everyone's busy because everyone's trying to spend on Black Friday, right? So building out on Microsoft ads, the cost per click, so the cost for traffic was 78% lower. If your media spend is being capped on Google because it's so expensive and you only have so much to spend, Microsoft ads might well be the answer for you. One of our appliance retailers mimics their account in both Microsoft and in Google. The Microsoft traffic made up 10% of their paid media traffic. The cost per click, so their cost for all their traffic was lower for each person coming to the site. And that return on ad spend is just phenomenal. I'm not going to lie, that return on ad spend isn't something we think we can scale every day of the year. And that's something we made clear to the client. We're not going to promise that to everyone. However, on this key day, that conversion rate was so high, that intent and buying intent was so hot on the money, that money was very well spent. Again, comparing it to that Google return on ad spend, blew it through the water. We're not saying that it's scalable. We're not saying that it is possible to achieve the same amount of revenue as it was in Google. However, if you can get 10% of your revenue coming through at that ROAS, I think you'll take it. So I think what the message here is, know when to use it, know how to use it. It's not always possible to scale to the same level. You probably won't see the same traffic volumes coming through. There might even be some instances where it's not a case of just copying and pasting one account into a different platform. There might be certain nuances. So again, this is really where having an agency manage this process is really key. A lot of the functionality is different between Google and Microsoft. Some of the smart bidding works differently. Some of the tracking needs to be set up differently. It's not just a clean copy and paste like Microsoft might want you to believe. So yeah, it is quite key to make sure that this is managed quite carefully. However, the opportunity is there if you are going to do it. And yeah, I think if you ask this retailer, do they regret having some of their retainer time spent on optimizing their Microsoft Ads account? They'll be doing exactly the same thing next Black Friday, I can tell you that. So yeah, there is definitely a case to be had. Next slide, please, Cam. So yeah, I think the moral of that story is Microsoft Ads will be useless if you're not going to use it. It is dead to you if you're not going to use it. You have to be in it to win it. As with any PPC campaign, if you're not in that auction, you're not going to win it. But equally, if you have it set up and the demand isn't there, you're not going to be spending on the media spend anyway. So it's worth a test because you've got to be in it, see it, dip your toe, see if it's there for you, see if your audience are there. If they're not, it's a really low risk activity because if your audience aren't there, you're not going to spend on the traffic anyway. But if they are there, you might well see those really low cost per clicks. You might see that really high opportunity for return. And particularly check it out by your market. So where your users are, what industry they're in, if you're B2B, B2C, what devices people are using, and yeah, really have a look at the data and see, because there might well be a huge opportunity for you there. Perfect. Back to you, Rob.
Thanks for that, Claire. Yeah, really interesting and some really good food for thought with Microsoft Ads there. On to the next myth, everybody, and that is that I need a website in order to drive leads. For a lot of people, a website is a very expensive thing to have for their business. Depending, it could be a huge website, small, medium, no matter what it is, it's quite an expensive outlay. But I understand it is very important, but for everyone, it's just not possible. So a common myth is that if they haven't got a website, there's no point doing any marketing activity because there's nowhere to send people. You show them an ad, if they've got nowhere to go, then yeah, it's largely pointless. So a lot of people get put off doing any sort of marketing because they can't afford a website. But there are ways around it, and one of the best ways around that is through a Facebook lead generation campaign. Some of you may have heard of this, some of you may have not. But essentially what this is a way to capture your potential audience's attention up front whilst they're on Facebook. You don't need to send them through to a website. They stay on platform. So if they're on Facebook, they're browsing, your advert pops up. Typically, they would click on it and go to a website. But with a Facebook lead generation campaign, you remove that step and the need for a website. So yeah, driving leads isn't governed by that. A Facebook lead generation campaign is an excellent way to sort of bypass the need for a website. And Cam, if you just go to the next slide. So I really want to include a screenshot of how this looks. So you'll see on that screenshot, just on the left of it is the advert that you'd be shown on Facebook. Now this is for an existing client of ours, Caerphilly Skips. So a local company based in South Wales. They do have a website, but we found in the past that people have actually converted better through lead generation than from sending them to the website. So what we do with our lead generation campaign is once they click the ad on Facebook, that form on the right hand side then pops up, gives them a little summary about Caerphilly Skips, about the cost of the skip, and the lead generation then easily allows a user to pop in some key details. Firstly, their email address, what is their name, what's their postcode, so where do they live, and their contact number. But most importantly, we also set this up so we ask the customer what size skip are they interested in. So the three options are mini, midi, and builders. So for this example, I've put builders down. What happens then is once they submit that form, all of that information is very easily and conveniently passed over to our client. So then they can follow up, they can call, say it was me, say, hi, Rob, you've just filled in a form on Facebook, you're interested in a builder skip. We can see you live 15 miles from our location. We can, here's a price for that skip. We can get that delivered to you tomorrow. So it's a very, very easy and smooth process, not just for the user, but for the client as well. We see excellent conversion rates on Facebook lead generation because it's a very warm lead, because they've had to take the time to fill in those details and actually specify the size of the skip in this example. The size of the skip that they want, the chances are when Caerphilly Skips then call them back, it's still front of their mind. They only would have done it a few minutes ago. So it's a high intent lead as well. And there's no need for them to go through to a website at all. So if you are struggling or you can't afford a website at this moment in time, Facebook lead generation is a very, very good way of driving leads. And even if you have a website, maybe you're not happy with it, or it's particularly slow, or you're in the middle of updating it, or it's just not fit for purpose, whatever it might be. There are ways around it, and Facebook lead generation is a key way of getting people to still submit an inquiry without sending them through to a website. Okay, thank you. And on to the last myth. I'm sure you've all been on LinkedIn. Many of you will probably have a LinkedIn profile. You've probably been hit by a few messages over the years by recruiters. So the myth is LinkedIn, excuse me, is just for recruiters. We find that a lot of people have that mentality that LinkedIn is either for recruiters looking to contact and get someone to apply for a different job, or it's for people who are in the process or looking to change jobs, so they're just seeing what's out there. They're dipping their toe into LinkedIn, what other jobs are out there. We spoke to a client before, which is that bottom quote, and they basically told us they don't use LinkedIn because they aren't job searching. They're not looking to change jobs. They're happy where they are, so they don't bother using LinkedIn, which is a massive mistake for the following reasons, Cam. So basically, LinkedIn is a tool that every professional should be using and should have in their arsenal. And there's many reasons why you should have LinkedIn. Not saying you have to be on it 8 hours a day, but it is important to sort of visit it now and again, make sure you're engaging. And there's multiple ways you can do that across LinkedIn. So first of all is building your network. If you're connecting with sort of like-minded people in similar industries, they are going to know about you. They're going to know what you do, what your business does, what you offer. It's like having an online business card. You don't need to manually meet someone, in person anymore. We all know now if someone's looking for a business, or they're just want to look them up, see what they do, maybe check out their reviews, their recommendations. People will go on LinkedIn. They will go and take a look at you, your profile. They'll then navigate to the company that they work for. Are they up to date? Are they relevant? Are they talking about content related to their industry? And if you think about it, if you were looking to work with maybe a new agency, and someone had reached out to you, you then go and visit them. You then visit the company's page, and if it's dormant, if there's nothing on there, I don't think it would fill you with confidence that this agency are going to look after you. So it's vitally important that you keep your profile and your company's profile up to date. But when you keep it up to date, you need to make sure it's relevant, because there's no point just sort of spamming the share and sort of repost button, because it needs to be relevant. It also allows you to stay in the know if you have an up-to-date and active LinkedIn profile. Once you start building your network, and if you're connecting with like-minded professionals, you're going to see what they're sharing, what they're posting, what they're talking about as well. And that will give you a lot of information and some really key knowledge as to what's going on in your industry. Whatever sector that's in, you will then get updates and see that vital information that you can then talk about, discuss with clients. So it's a really, really good way of staying in the know. Another reason is referrals. This is sort of where it does sort of hark back to the recruitment side of it, but LinkedIn does have a place for recruitment. And if you were looking to, maybe you were short staffed in a certain area of your business, but if you'd already built up your LinkedIn sort of network, and you posted that you were looking to hire somebody in that sector, when you post that on your LinkedIn profile or through your company page, because you've got that network already built up, more people are going to see it. More people are then likely to comment, maybe tag someone, share it. So it's like a snowball effect. Once you start building it, the circle just gets wider and wider, and most importantly, more relevant as well. And then lastly, reputation management. So it's a really good way of just showcasing again your business, making sure people can see, recent recommendations, reviews, sort of client testimonials. As it all goes to building your brand and your awareness across LinkedIn. And if you're not doing that already, then yeah, it's really important that you start doing that. Cam, thank you. I kind of spoke through a bit of the top bit on here in the previous slide, but just to sort of reiterate, if you're not already using LinkedIn simply because you're not looking to change jobs, then you are missing out on a massive opportunity. There's a link at the bottom of this slide to a page on LinkedIn, which is the SSI score, so the Social Selling Index. Some of you may have heard of this, some of you may have not. But the SSI score is basically a ranking from LinkedIn, and it's broken out into 4 main areas, which is professional brand, finding the right people, insight engagement, and building relationships. And it's out of 100, so it's ranked of 25 points for each 4. And I'd recommend having a look after this call. Just click the link, you just log into your LinkedIn as you normally would, and it will give you a breakdown, and it'll tell you where your profile is currently falling down. Are you not engaging with the right people? Are you not connecting with the right people? Are you not maybe posting enough content? Are you not sharing or discussing the right type of content? You're not building the right relationships. It's a really good, and it's a free tool to use. You can just go and have a look and check out your SSI score, which yeah, I did mine, and it was a bit of an eye opener. And I thought, okay, I need to start doing X, Y, and Z. So yeah, take a look. And thanks, Cam. And then lastly, still with LinkedIn. So as well as it being all of the above, what I've just discussed, then being a vitally important tool to help build your audiences and your brand and your sort of connections. There is a paid element of LinkedIn as well, which is LinkedIn Accelerator. Basically, what this is organic outreach, but sort of really ramped up. So instead of having to manually message people who you think might be in the market for your services, we're able to create a campaign which utilizes LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is LinkedIn, basically like LinkedIn Pro. I'm sure some of you have got Sales Navigator already. And basically what it does is allows you to start building and discussing really meaningful conversations with potential clients at a much higher rate than you would just by manually going to find people, so maybe putting your finger in the air, or they might be interested in what my company does. But through LinkedIn Accelerator, we can basically accelerate that and sort of have a much wider, larger audience available to you to reach out for people who might be interested in what you do. Again, Cam will share these round. If it's something you think might be of interest, then by all means, just drop us an email after this call.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Rob and Claire. Both some really interesting points there. I think just a slightly different way to look at some of these marketing topics than kind of usual. I mean, first of all, did anyone have any questions? If you do, feel free to kind of unmute yourself, or you can put them in the chat. Or if not, I'll just leave up Rob and Claire's email addresses up here. So after this session, I'll send around an email to everyone, just with kind of some contact details. I'll send the slides over and the recording. Sorry, I'm just reading what you've written there, Tom. Question for both of you there. Are there any kind of psychological resources that you guys use to guide your campaigns?
Oh, interesting. I don't know. I think some of it. I mean, I did a behavioral economics course when I was at uni, and I absolutely loved that. So that's all of the stuff from like the behavioral insights team. Some of it is a bit mathematical, but I don't know. I quite like, yeah. If you check out any of the material from the behavioral insights team, that's quite interesting stuff. But yeah, I think it's just yeah, it's kind of a process thing. What is it you want to see? What is it you want to know about your audience? What can you test to get there? I think as well, I don't know how familiar you are with search data, but it's one of my favorite tools to use for absolutely anything, being a PPC nerd. So as an example, there was a time I was doing a website restructure, and in order to work out what we needed in the website navigation bar, we looked at search data to look at how people were categorizing their wants for a product. And then that informed our decision on what order to kind of rank things in a navigation bar, because we had, insights straight from search. And yeah, I mean, in general, people will type things into Google. They wouldn't always tell their partner or best friend. So it's like a really rich data source. And it's quite funny how it's quite automated in that, you'll type something, you won't think about the order you put words in. So it's quite telling the order people search in, the phrasing variations people use. So that can be quite a helpful kind of psychological tool if you've got access to any of that. But yeah, I don't know. It kind of depends what it is you're looking to inform, I suppose. But great question.
Thank you.
Perfect. Did anyone else have any questions? Again, you'll be able to email kind of Rob and Claire after this. I'll send you some follow up. If there is no other questions, then thank you very much for coming along. And I hope you guys have a great day.